talking about wrestling's past, wrestling's present, and wrestling's future. Standing in the blue corner, the one, the only, talking Tyler Peters. And in the red corner, the Pod Daddy himself, Mr. David. So fine. David Fine Media proudly presents Beyond the Ropes, the podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, jack it up. It's bell time.
Welcome back into a brand new edition of Beyond the Ropes, the podcast. Of course, I am the Pod Daddy himself. I am David So Fine, as the great Smash Ventura would say. Of course, the man to my right, if you're listening to this on all of our social media platforms and all the podcast platforms, the man to my right, the voice you're about to hear, is the one, the only talking Tyler Peters. Tyler, it has been a minute, as the cool kids would say. I've been getting a lot of tweets, a lot of Facebook messages from our former colleagues on the other podcast. They've been saying, "Are you coming back?" I said, "Of course we're coming back," but we wanted to put together a podcast that combines wrestling's past, wrestling's present, and wrestling's future. That's why we have Beyond the Ropes podcast, and of course that amazing, freaking amazing intro by the one, the only Smash Ventura Productions. You looked amazing in that picture, and I don't know where the heck you got mine, but
oh, thank you.
But Tyler, welcome back. It's been a while. What have you been up to since the last time we chatted?
You know what? It has been a long time, and thank you, David. I'm happy to be on here. Excited. That intro has got me pumped up. I've been doing a lot of writing with on my official blog. I thought I'd try that out and just some different things, and have stepped back into the podcasting field per se. And I'm happy I did, man. I can't wait to talk about some Royal Rumble 88 and this year's Royal Rumble, and just some different things, what we're doing, exactly what we're having a conversation about.
Yeah, when I said, hey, we're going to come back, we're going to talk Royal Rumble 2022. I said, what? Let's go back in the Wayback Machine. Let's go in the time machine, kind of the DeLorean, like in Back to the Future. Hell of a good movie. The first and the second one, third one, not so much. We are going to be talking about the Royal Rumble 1988. It's the official first Royal Rumble that they showed. There was a Rumble in 1987 that was won by the One Man Gang. It was at a house show. I forgot where it was, but the attendance was like maybe 1,000, 1,500. So Vince said, "You know what? We're not going to even talk about it." But in your research, it's kind of one of those things that the legendary Pat Patterson, God rest his soul, he is the one who came up with this idea of the Royal Rumble. And the funny thing is, he came up with this idea, and he was also the first Intercontinental Champion, which is also funny because there was actually never a tournament for the Intercontinental title. He was just awarded the belt. But kind of give some history of the Royal Rumble, which was thought up by Pat Patterson.
Yeah, this was his idea. I think they were looking for something that was creative, that was unique and new, that had been done with the Battle Royal, but in a different way. And Pat Patterson just showed you the creativity, the mind he had for the business, being a former professional wrestler, the Hall of Famer that he was. And, it's so sad. And what a way to honor his legacy, his memory, but it's a tribute with the Royal Rumble. You think of Pat Patterson, and also putting together matches, laying out the storytelling, the finishes. He was amazing. You don't realize the depth of the knowledge. He was one of Vince McMahon's right-hand men. He was very close with Vince and that whole process.
Yeah, it was funny. It took place. It was in Canada, on the USA Network. It was a special. This was back when USA. This had to have been in the early stages of USA Network, where they really didn't have any shows. Now it's they have so many shows. It seems to be. They have, of course, they have the Monday Night Raw, and they have the other shows. Fox is SmackDown, and NXT. They're on.
Yeah, NXT, right? 2.0. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I could go into that, but that's just. I mean, to be honest with you, the product is terrible. But hey, Rick Steiner's son is now the current reigning and defending NXT champion, so that's good for him. But
that's been a positive.
I mean, this card was stacked full of many matches, many good matches. I mean, we'll get into it. I know we're going to start off, of course, with Ricky Steamboat. I mean, I thought that was this was back in '88 when Rick Rude had I think he had just left the National Wrestling Alliance, because he was teaming with Rick Rude, or with Manny Fernandez, managed by Paul Jones. They were tag team champions of the National Wrestling Alliance. He is coming in against Ricky Steamboat, and I mean, this is which WrestleMania was it? WrestleMania 3, I think it was, that Ricky Steamboat had that amazing match with
Macho Man, Randy Savage, yeah,
at the Pontiac Silverdome with like 94,000 people in attendance. I mean, what did you think about this match to start off?
I thought it was a fantastic way to open up the show. I mean, you got Ravishing Rick Rude, one of the greatest heels ever, meaning a villain in wrestling. And he went away too soon. That's the thing about the nostalgia aspect of these kind of pay-per-views, or this TV special for the first inaugural Royal Rumble. Rick Rude was just so great with psychology. And then you've got Ricky the Dragon Steamboat, one of the greatest babyface hero wrestlers. And I have a hard time believing he could ever be heel. He's just such a nice guy. And these two had chemistry going back to the Crockett days. I believe maybe they met then. I'm not sure, but they've met plenty of times here in the WWF. And this was a great match. I love how Rick Rude told the story working on the back, and then Steamboat would make his comeback. There was just a lot of excitement talking about the Dragon and the Ravishing one. So I enjoyed it.
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely a good opening match. They went from this good match to a segment involving Canada's strongest man, Dino Bravo. He was attempting to set a world bench press record of 715 pounds. Of course, he was successful. He was, I guess, helped out by Jesse the Body Ventura. What are your thoughts on these kind of like gimmick things? They've done this a lot in the WWF, where they have, they do weightlifting things, they do this and do that. I mean, do you think it just takes away from the event, or you just think it doesn't really matter?
I think for this era and time, it worked. I think it's okay, because you got Dino Bravo. He's going to be in the Rumble anyway, so you're just kind of telling more stories. You're trying, essentially wanting to build more angles off your big show, and I found it humorous. Mean Gene Okerlund, one of the greatest stick men ever, was hosting it. Jesse the Body Ventura, always entertaining, telling the crowd to be quiet, to shut up. Frenchie Martin was great, and Dino Bravo, another sad case. I mean, I'm not going to go into all the details, but was very talented, and it's a shame his career got cut short by some bad decisions. But with all due respect to him, I found it humorous that he was strong and going to make it, but being the spotter that Jesse the Body Ventura was, he helped him. And Vince McMahon was going to give him a hard time about that. So it was nice banter between the commentary between McMahon and Ventura.
Yeah, I mean, it was and speaking of, of Dino Bravo, his career was cut short, and also his life. Yeah, he kind of got into some shady stuff, and kind of cost him his life, but he was a great wrestler. I mean, if you want to see a great special on Dino Bravo, watch the Vice Beyond the Road.
No, Dark Side of the Ring.
Dark Side of the Ring, and they cover that and in detail, and it was just sad. But the next match we had, of course, was for the World Wrestling Federation Women's Tag Team titles, and it's funny, the winners of the match, not to give anything away, were the Jumping Bomb Angels. They won the two matches to one. It was funny, in the graphic, it said the World Ladies Tag Team Champions. It wasn't the. And what were your thoughts on this? I mean, it was the Glamour Girls, Judy Martin and Leilani Kai, taking on the Jumping Bomb Angels. I mean, what were your thoughts on this? I mean, you actually liked this match, you said.
I did. I actually didn't mind the 2 out of 3 fall stipulation. I thought these 4 ladies worked hard. You had a lot of great experience between the Glamour Girls. Jimmy Hart, I've got to find this for the only Mouth of the South, the original, the Tinky Bar, baby. I want to go try one sometime. That's for another story. But I thought, as far as managers, he's on my Mount Rushmore. Also, musically inclined, all the themes he was responsible for. But in the Jumping Bomb Angels brought innovative style from Japan. There's something about these cultures, even with wrestling, that really bring out the best in these type of matches. And so I enjoyed it. I thought 2 out of 3 falls made it harder too, where, oh, you just don't pin them. You've got to try to do it at least twice. So I enjoyed it. I actually did like the match, believe it or not. And I mean, it was good.
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely. I mean, it was definitely good. It was back when women's wrestling was not really a prominent feature. I mean, I remember the WWE when. I mean, hey, I'm a guy. I like to see the stuff that they did, but back in the day where they'd have this kind of match, that kind of match, but bikini on a pole. It was
it was a different time.
It was a different time. I at least liked back then when they did feature women's wrestling. It was women's wrestling. It was not some kind of gimmick match. It wasn't something that Jerry Lawler would love. I mean, it was actually a wrestling match. So I mean, I thought it was good. The next part of the event, it was Andre Hogan signing the contract. I mean, when they were showing highlights and everything of Hogan getting, I mean, he's a tall guy, but Andre was humongous. His hands, I mean, he just put his hands around his neck without any effort. And of course, this whole, and with $1 Million Man tried to buy the title from Andre. And of course, Jack Tunney said, you can't do that. So then the title got vacated. I mean, what were your thoughts on this and the rematch with Hogan and Andre?
I thought it was great. Andre's just got to be there. His presence, like you said, the $1 Million Man, Ted DiBiase, is great on promos. He's a great wrestler overall, going back to the Mid-South Territory days before he came to the WWF. And then Hulk Hogan is just amazing. I mean, I've got Hulkamania right here, man. We're running wild on you people. That's what's going on. Oh. I digress, but I tried too hard, I know. But Hulk Hogan was great. Who doesn't love the WrestleMania 3 match? I'm with you. I thought Steamboat Macho Man, for as far as matches, was a lot better. But how can you fault Andre and Hogan, 2 of the biggest box office attractions at the time, Pontiac Silverdome? So a lot of people, it was money. It was a big draw. They wanted to see Hogan and Andre go at it again. I mean, it just, and why not? You're going to debut the show. What was it? A spinoff of Saturday night's Main Event on NBC. This was called The Main Event, episode 1, a premiere. So what do? You book Hogan versus Andre. I loved it. I thought the segment with Tunney, everybody was great.
Yeah, I mean, Jack Tunney, he's can't say much about Jack Tunney, but and I mean, and Bobby Heenan, I mean, like they say about everything, he was gone too soon.
He was.
I mean, just like I said before, God, if he was around when they had podcasts, holy moly. Well, A. Conrad Thompson would have been all over that, but that would have been one of his many that would have been as many podcasts he had. But God, if he had,
and that would have been number 1 for sure.
If he had the chance to do a podcast, I mean, the stories that he could have said and told, I mean, it would have been amazing. I would have paid to hear those.
Yeah, I would have too.
I mean, it's definitely it definitely, like I said, gone too soon. Then they had now it wasn't even the main event. It was the Royal Rumble. And what were your thoughts on that? It was now, they had the countdown clock, the marks. I mean, the fans, sorry, at the arena count everything down, and they didn't count down last time, or at the 1988 Rumble. They did have the countdown clock, but it was not consistent. Like, you would be watching, and then like one time it was Nikolai Volkov and Don Morocco. They came down to get. It was. What were your thoughts on this first ever Royal Rumble, which, spoiler, was won by Hacksaw Jim Duggan?
I thought it was neat from the standpoint that you didn't probably expect Hacksaw to win out of some of that talent, even with all due respect to Jim Duggan, because I loved him. I'm a fan. But you probably would have thought, well, you've got Bret Hart, you've got, Don Morocco, you've got Tito Santana, you've got Jake the Snake Roberts, all this talent, the Ultimate Warrior, all these big stars. and then Hacksaw wins it. I mean, even One Man Gang, you talked about it. He won the one that wasn't shown as far as the actual first Royal Rumble, but he ends up getting eliminated. There was just so much talent and star power, but I found myself able to watch it. That's why I like the concept Pat Patterson had that shows you his genius. It's easy to say it now, that it wasn't too much going on where you couldn't follow it. So from that standpoint, that perspective, I just thoroughly enjoyed myself. I got invested, and when you get invested in something, it makes a big difference.
Yeah, I mean, for the first ever Royal Rumble, it was good. I mean, they had Jake Roberts, they had Tito Santana, and it was funny back then, the things that you could get away with by saying, like Jim Duggan, Jesse Ventura called him Chico Santana, which of course, in these days and standards would definitely be offensive to somebody. But I mean, they had Butch Reed with his blonde hair. They had Jim Neidhart, the King Harley Race, Jim Bronzell, Sam Houston, Danny Davis, Boris Zukov, Don Morocco, Nikolai Volkov, Braun Bass, B. Blambert, Hillbilly Jim, Dino Bravo, the Ultimate Warrior, One Man Gang, and the Junkyard Dog. I mean, of all these, who would you have picked if you could put money on? Who would you have picked to win?
Junkyard Dog would not be out of the question. Really, it's a who's who from that lineup. I mean, Warrior, they were pushing him even from the beginning, whether people wanted it or not. They were going to go that direction. I could see that. Hillbilly Jim, even. I mean, even some of the gimmicks back then, because that's the way they were going creatively. But I like Duggan. I don't know, but I wouldn't have picked him. So that's kind of a good question to think about. I love when I get stumped, because it makes you have to exercise, the what ifs a little bit. So it's fascinating to me. I'm not sure out of all that talent who I would have imagined could win it, because it was the first ever, and it's unique. You didn't have Hogan and Andre or even Macho Man, so you didn't even have your other main event stars or like a Piper or anybody else. So I think that would have made a big difference as well.
Yeah, and the funny thing is, the first person in the event was Bret Hitman Hart. He went 25 minutes 42 seconds. He had one elimination, and it's funny, Jim Duggan was in there for 14:44. The shortest was Boris Zukov. He was eliminated by Jake Roberts and Jim Bronzell at 2:33. I mean, it was, and of course, the One Man Gang. One Man Gang eliminated a lot of people. The Ultimate Warrior, Hillbilly Jim, Dino Bravo, B. Blambert, Braun Bass. Yeah, I mean, it was definitely, it was 20 men. Of course, now it's 30.
Mm-hmm.
I think one time they
30.
went 40. One year, I think I read.
They probably did, yeah.
Back in the day. But I mean, overall, it was good for a first ever Royal Rumble on USA Network. Like I said, and it was interesting. They were like, and we come back from the commercial break, and then I'm like, well, you don't get that. Thank God.
Right, because it eventually went to pay-per-view the next year. So I had not realized that it was on television until I went back on Peacock and watched it. That's what was interesting.
Yep.
It was a special, but it was actually very inventive on the part of Vince and company to do that, to give USA this big special.
Yeah, I mean, definitely back then they needed that. But it was interesting. The main event of the entire evening, it was the best 2 out of 3 falls match. The Islanders of Haku and Tama taking on the Young Stallions of Pretty Paul Roma and Mr. Jim Powers. The Islanders, in 14 minutes, won 2 matches and got 2 pinfalls. And I don't know, if you were booking this show, would you have put the first ever Royal Rumble as the main event, or how would you have done it?
I would have probably put the Rumble as the main event, but seeing how I don't know anything about booking that, I mean, they did the right thing, because it would be easy for me to sit here as a fan and go, oh yeah, I would have definitely did the Rumble, and it would have made sense. But I think that's the thing. They didn't want you to know how the lineup was going to go. They wanted to create some interest. So, hey, we've got a tag team match. We'll give you the Rumble earlier so we can still give you some action later on with the tag team match. And I like the 2 out of 3 falls. And I like the Young Stallions, Jim Powers and Paul Roma. And, of course, the Islanders. I hate Bobby the Brain Heenan couldn't be there for some reason. Matilda, I forgot about that storyline. The Islanders must have kidnapped her or something from the Bulldogs. That was clever. That was very 80s. You could tell it was that era of professional wrestling. And this was a great team. I mean, Haku's a legit tough guy, one of the most feared guys. But he works so well. And then, of course, you got Tama and then, Roman Powers. And the way that injury, I think it was Paul Roma who sold the leg or knee or something. That was good because they had to go to an interview. So that was very clever by the production, by television, by the WWF at the time. So I enjoyed the match. I thought it was had physicality. They told a story. Overall, very good.
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely a great first Royal Rumble. I mean, in a second, we're going to get to talking about this year's Royal Rumble, which will be, of course, tomorrow night on the Peacock Network. And if you're watching or listening to this in any other country besides the good old United States of America, you'll be watching on the WWE Network, which I still don't understand that, but that's neither here nor there. Next week, we're going to be covering an amazing show that I know I picked out, and you said, God, why? It was WCW's Hog Wild, live from Sturgis, South Dakota, in the middle of a biker rally, which it seems like a terrible idea. It was really loud because, of course, you get a bunch of bikers, 50,000 bikers and their bicycles and their motorcycles, and they're going to be revving their engines. So that's going to be a definitely a great show to cover. What are your thoughts before we get into this year's Royal Rumble about Hog Wild?
It was different, but I think you had to try it. I mean, wrestling's had outdoor events. They were trying to co-brand or co-promote, which wasn't a terrible idea, but I don't know, wrestling and biker rallies. I'm not sure I would have ever thought about it, but I remember watching that as a kid. It kind of brings some 90s nostalgia. We're just going to go ahead to the decade following the 80s. So it had good matches for what it was and had some not so good matches, but they weren't terrible. So I don't think it's one of the worst, but it's definitely not one of the best looking back. But it definitely did have some good matchups. I mean, so I can't wait to talk about it more.
Yeah, we're going to definitely talk about that next week at the same time. Same, as I say, same bad channel. But moving on to the 2022 WWF Royal Rumble. Like I said, it is live tomorrow night on the Peacock Network. I mean, let's just get to it. I mean, the WWF product. I mean, recently, what have you been your thoughts before we get into the show about the WWF product recently?
I think the Roman Reigns, Paul Heyman, and then the Brock Lesnar storyline has been must-see TV. I think it's helped Raw. I mean, I hate Roman Reigns had COVID and couldn't compete at day one, but it definitely said, speaking of the table, no pun intended, as the head of the table, Roman Reigns, but Brock Lesnar defeating Big E. And I love this version of Lesnar. I know everybody likes the mean, serious beast, and we're going to get that, I think, this Sunday against Lashley. But I like Brock showing some personality. I mean, it's funny. I watched Raw. That line he told Corey Graves, "What do you want me to do? Get naked, have an OnlyFans, or something to that effect?" I was laughing. I thought it was great.
Yeah, please don't do that. But talking about the matches, in no particular order, of course, we have for the WWF Championship, it's Brock Lesnar taking on Bobby Lashley. I mean, just give me your opinion on this match.
I think it's going to be a tremendous match. It's that fantasy matchup all us fans, the wrestling community, and even the wrestlers have been wanting to see. You think about their backgrounds. Bobby Lashley was in the Army, wrestled, I believe, Bellator. You've got Lesnar, who wrestled UFC. He's an NCAA champion from University of Minnesota. I mean, both are legit, just tough athletes. You don't want to mess with them. You don't want to meet them in an alley and make them mad. These guys are real. I mean, you do. You have that sense of intimidation. That's what wrestlers ought to be presented by. And then you got Paul Heyman, MVP. I mean, two great talkers that really set it up where these guys are limited with what they have to say.
Yep.
I think just the way they build it up. Now, of course, there's going to be things we don't like, and it's easy to pick at and say, I wouldn't have went that way. But we're going to get a more serious Brock Lesnar. He's just doing the comedy, probably to play mind games with Lashley, where Lashley's going to still be intense. And we're going to see just one fantastic matchup. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely, like you said, must-see TV. Then we're going to have the Universal Championship match. The head of the table, Roman Reigns, taking on Seth freaking Rollins. I'm not just saying that. That's what he's called now. And the Usos are barred from ringside. What are your thoughts? Do you think Seth Rollins will beat Roman Reigns or no?
I don't see Rollins beating Reigns. I think because they're going to want maybe that potential title versus title if Lesnar retains at Rumble, which I think he will. But I love the backstory of this. Seth Rollins, Roman Reigns started out in the Shield once they got called up from NXT with Jon Moxley, who's now in AEW. And I like the fact that you catch where he actually did say Mox, which was cool. He didn't get in trouble. I think that was very nicely done and shows you the respect, even going to a competitor with AEW. But these guys, they're going to tell a story. I think Rollins is probably overall can work the match a little better, but I mean, Reigns is awful good. I like this heel Reigns. This is much needed. I love the association, and these guys are going to tear the house down. It's going to be another great match, and I think it's smart to keep the Usos away, but it makes you think, how is he going to really keep them away? Because I think they're going to find some kind of loophole, knowing how wrestling works.
Yep. The match said they should find a loophole and let this lady win. For the Raw Women's Championship, the man Becky Lynch taking on your favorite wrestler and mine, the UK's own Doudrop. Is there any chance in hell that Doudrop is going to win the Raw Women's title? Or do you think they're just doing this? I don't know. I mean, I don't know why they're doing this.
I don't think she's going to win. No, I think Becky Lynch retains, but I'll tell you why they're doing it. I think there's so much appeal in the UK and other markets. And if you followed her career before Doudrop and learn a little bit about it, Doudrop has opened up. She was, and I forget her name now before that. I should have researched it better. But with Becky Lynch, they wanted this match even over in Britain because she's from Scotland. Of course, Becky Lynch, Big Time Beck's from Ireland, prior to coming to WWE. So it's been 15 years in the making if you read interviews. So I think it's actually going to be a good competitive match, but I don't see them taking the title off of Becky Lynch. But I'm actually fine with it because you got to keep giving Becky Lynch some good, formidable opponents.
Yeah, her name was Piper or Viper.
That's it.
And she was. She's from Scotland, and she's. An amazing, and it's interesting, when you do research. In 2019, she found out she had Bell's palsy, which is amazing that she's still wrestling, and that there's a lot of like Roman Reigns, he has leukemia, but that doesn't stop him. I mean, it's interesting how wrestlers now, they do not stay in character. Back in the day, it was kayfabe. I mean, the heels and the baby faces never stayed in the same hotel. They never associated with each other. But now, Roman Reigns is doing charity work and doing a bunch of other stuff. And I guess it's because of the internet. I mean, the internet's good because you can have an amazing podcast like Beyond the Ropes. Each
exactly.
And every week. But I mean, it does kind of take some of the luster and the lure of wrestling away.
It does. Just like with the Rumble, there's so much about the surprise entrance. No, I'm one of those people. I don't want to know, man. It's like Christmas. I don't want to find out.
I'm going to tell you a breaking news.
Here we go. I know.
I mean, I'm not going to tell you right now. It's kind of a tease, but it's confirmed, not confirmed. I can't tell you where I heard this news. You'll never get it out of me. But it's a person that you would never have thought would come back in the Royal Rumble on tomorrow night. And if I'm wrong, then, well, I'm wrong.
I'm intrigued, but I'm with you though.
Oh, trust me, folks. If you want to know who this is, you got to stay tuned to the end of the program. But the next match we had is the Miz and his wife Maurice taking on Beth Phoenix and Edge. What are your thoughts on this? I mean, Beth Phoenix, holy crap. I mean, she is one bad lady in a good way, but I mean, she's a person I would also not want to meet in a dark alley after being made mad.
No, she's a legit tough lady and always in great shape. And and Edge, the rated R superstar, the Glamazon. I loved her on commentary on NXT, but I also am loving her coming back, and this whole angle with Miz and Maurice has been great television, and I'm looking forward to this match. Maurice will do what she needs to, but it'll be mainly Beth Phoenix carrying her. And then Edge and Miz, we've already seen them have a match at day one. That's going to be good. And the Miz, I told you off air, David, that I wasn't a big fan of the Miz, but more and more, I'm coming to appreciate his work, because you don't like the guy, and that's the point. He's the heel. You're not supposed to like him.
No, and I heard he's pretty awesome too. I mean,
I've heard that too. He is pretty awesome. Miz TV. Well, he's been Dancing with the Stars. The guy has definitely sports entertainment, not just wrestling.
And if you and your family or anybody has about $14.5 million, they are selling their really big house out in California. I guess even for the Miz, and he's making all this money, the taxes in California, I'm sure, are really, really, really expensive. So he's, I guess, moving. I'm not sure where he's moving. Maybe he's moving back to Cleveland because that's where he's from. But yeah, I mean, if you have $14.5 million, just look up on the Google machine and type in, the Miz's house, and you'll see it's it's nice.
I'll have to check it out. I'm sure it's got to be just a very beautiful home.
Once again, it's awesome. But getting into the co-main events of the WWE Royal Rumble 2022 is the Women's Royal Rumble. I mean, what are your thoughts on? I mean, this is a newer concept. I mean, they've had it a couple of years, but it used to just be the men. Now it's the men and the women, which I think is amazing because, as you know, two women main event at WrestleMania a couple years ago, and that's just awesome because it's normally to be honest with you, it's a guys' club. I mean, the guys are going to main event. The guys are going to be the top heels, but now the women are just in a more prominent role, which people really, really like.
They do. I think it's well overdue. I'm glad you brought out that main event from WrestleMania. What was it, 35? I'm trying to recall. But it was a triple threat match. It really, when Becky Lynch was getting that push, being the man, then big time Bex now. But it was Ronda Rousey and Charlotte Flair. And I think, what was it? Rousey was Raw Women's Champion. Charlotte was the SmackDown Women's Champion. And that's what gave us Becky 2 belts. That was just a great main event. I've went back and watched that one. And the story they told, the physicality, I love that whole feud. So I'm glad. There's so many great stars that are represent the women's division, and I'm anxious to see who the surprises are, because they've already revealed a lot with Mickie James, Michelle McCool, the Bella Twins, and I love the fact that Lita has came back. And to be honest, that's one of my picks to possibly who could win it.
Yeah, it's funny with Mickie James. She's of course a part of the National Wrestling Alliance, and of course she is the one who is married to the national treasure, Mr. Nick Aldis, the longest reigning, greatest NWA champion of all time, but that's just my opinion. It's funny how the WWE brought her back even after this alleged, and we've seen pictures of they put her stuff in a garbage bag and sent it to her in the mail.
They did,
and now they want her back. And and I'm assuming that that Pat McAfee got the okay from his producer and everybody in the back to announce her as the Impact Women's Champion, because you never hear the WWE talk about any other promotion other than something that's their brand.
Correct. Oh, it's a no-no, never. But obviously they wanted Mickie James so bad, and there must be some kind of relationship with Impact. Scott D'Amore, I think, has even said he's worked with every other company now in wrestling. So I'm happy for them this way. Maybe they give Impact some much-needed exposure. Not that they're not known, but especially this new incarnation away from TNA, Impact as a whole. And Mickie James, I'm happy for her. I'm a big fan of what she does. And hey, is she going to walk out the Impact Women's, championship title is what I was getting at. I'm interested. I think it may be kind of cool to see.
Yeah, I mean, it'll definitely be fun to see. But getting to the main event of the main events is the 2022 edition of the Men's Royal Rumble. And what are your thoughts on that before I get to the breaking news, the scoop that I have from an inside source, and I cannot ever, and I will never tell you who this inside source is on air. What are your thoughts on this?
I think it's going to be another one that if it's booked like last year, I'm going to be all about it because I thought the way they booked it, maybe not last year, but 2 years ago when it was Drew McIntyre, he eliminated Brock. I thought that's what I was going back to is 2020. It just don't seem like it's been that long ago because it hasn't. But I think it's going to be just another very good, well done matchup. You've got 30 men, and I think Randy Orton may do it. I think he may be due again. I know I'm going out on a limb probably, but I think it's credible that Randy Orton could outlast everybody and go the distance.
And according to our great source from the great Smash Ventura, good vibes, as he says.
We love Smash.
Mr. Smash. But the breaking news that the inside source that I have that like I said, I will never tell you who gave me this information except when we're off the air. A man who is currently a free agent in a promotion that's not the WWE, it's not the Impact, it's not Ring of Honor. Well, no one works for Ring of Honor anymore. And he is the grandson. He is the great grandson of a plumber. And that's all I'm going to say. So if you can figure out who that could be, I've been told by inside sources that he's going to be at the 2022 Royal Rumble. What are your thoughts if this does happen, that the great grandson of a plumber is at the WWF or WWE 2022 Royal Rumble?
I think it's great news. I think I'm all for it because who knows what we'll see. A lot of people have even rumored maybe New Japan talent may sneak in this Rumble. I mean, it's a who's who. I mean, it's all a guessing game from this standpoint. But I think if it is that person you're alluding to, I think it could be very intriguing. I mean, I'm going to have to go back to that word. I don't mean to sound redundant, but I think it may make all the difference in the world. I mean, I don't want to overblow who the surprise that you're referencing.
I mean, his fans, I mean, they could wake up from an American nightmare. I just don't understand, I mean, I don't know. But speaking of things that are nothing to do with the WWE or any other thing, have you recently, we're kind of pivoting away from the Royal Rumble. Have you been watching AEW? I mean, that
I have.
is holy crap. That product is amazing.
Yeah, they're doing a lot of exciting things. I got to tell you, the Sammy Guevara Cody Rhodes match was awesome. The ladder match that was good. I mean, that diamond cutter off the ladder. I mean, when you got DDP even giving you props, that's saying a lot. And I'm not a big fan of Guevara, to be honest with you. I mean, I think he's talented. It's just not my style. Is what I'm meaning. But overall, I actually thought, hey, I got to give him his due, his credit. This was good.
Oh my God! Did you see that that moonsault or whatever he did off the ladder onto the ladder that Cody was on?
Yes,
that didn't. I mean, I remember working a show in Rome, Georgia, many moons ago. It was an anything goes match. A bunch of big wrestlers, a bunch of large wrestlers, and not as in stature, not in like talent, but they were wrestling. They went through all the gimmick tables. They said, "Hey, we haven't had enough gimmick tables to go through. So let's go to the merchandise department area." Those tables are not gimmicked. And that ladder was not gimmicked. That did not give two shits that Sammy Guevara jumped on Cody Rhodes and looked like he bounced off that like a rubber ball. I mean, it was devastatingly.
Did you see his back? I mean, you could tell. I mean, they had really been working stiff because his back, I mean.
Yeah. And before we get into kind of like the closing a segment where we're going to, talk about the things that we're going to be doing and kind of promote each other. I mean, the person that I love the most in AEW is Dr. Britt Baker, DMD. I mean, she is amazing. And of course, her fiance boyfriend, Adam Cole, baby, he's amazing too. But I mean, what are your thoughts on Britt Baker, the AEW Women's Champion?
I think she's their star that they're going behind, and rightfully so. She can talk, she can work, she's got the look. She's, I love that they've incorporated Adam Cole because everybody knows. I mean, it's out there. They're an item and everything. What? Boyfriend, girlfriend. I know, but that's breaking news, is it not? Is it a big shock?
Oh my
They're
God.
together.
Are you trying to say I don't have a shot with her now because she's dating Adam Cole?
Well, I don't know, man. I mean, we can all dream. I know I've dreamed. I'll be honest. I mean, a very attractive lady. But with
you
all
know who really loves her, Tony Schiavone.
Tony Schiavone does, and I got to admit, I get tickled with those segments because Tony is just he's our favorite, man. We review a lot of the Crockett promotions, Jim Crockett promotions, who we're talking about NWA, Mid Atlantic, and even WCW. And Tony Schiavone was an integral part of all of that. So I love it. I love the banter between the two.
Yeah, I mean, and kind of to end our banter tonight on this season premiere of Beyond the Ropes podcast. So of course, myself, David Fine, and the one, the only talking Tyler Peters. Where are you going to be in the very near future that people can come out and say, "Hey, I know you from Beyond the Ropes podcast. You are talking Tyler Peters."
Well, it's funny you mentioned that. March 12th, Coastal Championship Wrestling, the Last Territory, is coming back to Nashville, Tennessee at Helios Granite, and it'll be called The Meltdown. I mean, that's a great name for a wrestling show, and it's going to feature Miranda Gordy, who is the daughter, a very talented wrestler. The daughter, if you remember, the Freebirds of Bam Bam Gordy, the same family. What a lineage, and she's established herself as one of the future superstars in all of professional wrestling. It doesn't matter. So
she is definitely. I know who she is, and I mean, she is. I mean, to be honest with you, she's amazing. She is. She's another person that I would not want to piss off and get into any kind of altercation in the dark alley, a lighted alley, the middle of my room, the middle of my living room, the middle of a gymnasium. I would not want to piss her off.
I would just say, yes, ma'am. Anything you want, I'll do for you. Just don't hurt me. That would be my response.
Yeah,
my respect.
You definitely do not want to hurt her. I mean, definitely not want to hurt her. You definitely do not want her to hurt you. But yeah, I mean, it's anything. I mean, any other new topics on talking on your blog?
Yeah, actually, thanks to this podcast and a lot of other, speaking of concepts, ideas, I've, tylerstake.com, which you'll still find under Tyler's Take podcast.wordpress.com. It's through WordPress, which is very helpful if you want to start a blog. But Pat, we talked about Pat Patterson and Royal Rumble 88. It gave me the idea to just write a little piece on it. And I've got this podcast to thank because I was reviewing it and thought, you know what, this would be kind of cool. And we've got the Royal Rumble for this year coming up. So why not? It makes sense.
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely, a great read. I mean, if you have,
oh, thank you.
I mean, if you want to learn a lot of stuff that you probably didn't know, I mean, your take is always the one that I go to.
I appreciate it.
Yeah. I'm as they would say, I'm shooting, brother. But talking about stuff that I am doing, I'm going to be coming back to professional wrestling March the 26th, but for an amazing promotion called Georgia Championship Wrestling. Going to be doing TV with the one, the only Scott Hudson, and of course from the WCW and some other promotions. They're going to be coming back. All their shows are on a Saturday nights at the go-to. Sorry, it's got to be Rolling Event Center, 1200 Chivers Avenue in Buckhead, Georgia. Not the city of Atlanta, but Buckhead, Georgia. All events take place at 7:00. Bell time's at 7:00. The doors open at 6 or 6:30. In February, this coming month, I was supposed to make my debut, but we're going to be out of town. It's called My Bloody Valentine. It's an amazing show. In March 26th, I'll be making my debut. It's called Bad Luck. It's going to be bad luck for the town of Buckhead, Georgia, because David Fine's coming to town.
Watch out, yeah.
And folks, no autographs, please. And then coming up in April, they have Breakout. May 28th, they have Memorial Day Mayhem. June 25th is Heat Wave. It's the middle of the summer. July is called the Great Buckhead Bash. Hot Summer Nights is in August 20th. September 24th is Battle Bowl. That Battle Bowl lottery, that seems to be a copyright issue, but I'm not the one. And then October, Frightmare. It's, I guess, their Halloween show. Mm-hmm. November have Bunkhouse Stampede, and finally December 17th they have Christmas Slamboree. It's an amazing promotion. The great Chris Nelms. He's booked me. Said, "Hey, you want to come do TV?" I said, "I got a guy that we're going to record." You have me. Of course, I'm I Am Who I Am, and we got Scott Hudson. So it's going to be an amazing show. It's going to be up on their YouTube channel. It's going to be a David Fine Media production, just like the Beyond the Ropes podcast. But next week, folks, we are going to be covering, like I said, Hog Wild from the amazing Sturgis, South Dakota. It's a show that it's definitely one of those ones that you have to relive and relook at, because it has Rey Mysterio. He's on the first match. I think at that time he was about 21 years old.
Very young. It was early on, at least for the American audiences.
Yeah, and Ultimate Dragon. We had the Harlem Heat, which, to be honest with you, I mean, I don't think people in South Dakota really like them, but that's neither here nor there. Colonel Parker, and then of course the great sensational Queen Sherry. I mean, it was some great matches. It was definitely a show you need to review and look back. But once again, Tyler, thanks for coming back and agreeing to come back on the show this week.
I'm happy to, and I just want to say I'm looking forward to next week's show, but I'm happy for you, David, and Georgia Championship Wrestling. That's going back to some old school territory stuff there. And Chris Nelms is a great guy. I actually had the opportunity to meet him.
Yeah, and surprisingly enough, he's actually said, "You are a good guy too." And I said, "How much did he pay you?"
Yeah, exactly. I paid him a lot.
He said about $5, and he asked for $4 back. I don't understand that, but yeah, I mean, he said nothing but good things about you. And of course, I mean, it's one of those promotions. Hey, if you're going to give me, if I can get my wife to say, "Hey, sure, you can go work a wrestling promotion once a month," I don't care what kind of promotion it is. If it's good, bad, or different, it's going to be amazing. But we will see you back here next time for the same amazing show where we cover WCW's Hog Wild from the lovely Sturgis, South Dakota. We'll talk to you next week.